The transport ship shook as it entered the docking bay. Kira Vasquez pressed her face against the small window and watched the Valorian Institute grow larger. The space station was enormous. It circled a pale moon like a metal ring, covered in lights and towers and landing platforms. Ships from 100 worlds came and went like insects around a hive. She had seen pictures before, but pictures did not capture the size of it. This was where the galaxy trained its warriors. For 4,000 years, the best fighters from every species had walked these halls, and now for the first time, a human would join them. Kira was not sure if she should feel proud or terrified. She decided to feel both. The transport landed with a gentle bump. Kira grabbed her bag and walked down the ramp into a wide hangar. The air smelled different here. Clean and recycled, with a hint of something sharp that she could not name. Aliens moved around her in every direction. Some walked on 2 legs like her. Others had 4 legs, or 6, or none at all. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish drifted past her without a sound. She had studied the species files during her journey. The tall ones with gray skin and 4 arms were Draelith. They were natural warriors, strong and fast, with bones like steel. The insect-like beings with clicking mandibles were Vethkai. They fought in swarms and could see in complete darkness. The thin, pale figures with large black eyes were Silurians. They were not strong, but they were smart, very smart. They planned battles 10 moves ahead and rarely lost. These were her classmates now. These were the beings she would train beside. A Draelith officer waited at the end of the hangar. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his gray skin covered in ritual scars. His forearms were folded across his chest, and his eyes looked down at her with something between curiosity and disgust. "You are the human," he said. It was not a question. "Sergeant Kira Vasquez," she replied, "reporting for training." The Draelith made a sound in his throat. It might have been a laugh. "I am Lieutenant Vorath. I will take you to your quarters. Try to keep up." He turned and walked away without waiting for her response. Kira followed, her shorter legs working hard to match his pace. They moved through corridors filled with cadets and officers. Every alien they passed stopped to stare at her. She heard whispers in languages she did not understand. She did not need to understand them to know what they were saying. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 18 years ago. In galactic terms, her species was a baby, a child species. They had no history, no reputation, no proof that they belonged here. The only reason Kira had been admitted was politics. Earth wanted a seat at the table, and the Galactic Concord had agreed to give them one chance. One human, 1 year, one opportunity to prove that humanity deserved respect. No pressure at all. Her quarters were small but clean. A bed, a desk, a storage unit for her belongings. A window looked out at the stars. Vorath pointed at a uniform hanging on the wall. "Wear that," he said. "Training begins tomorrow at 6 bell. Do not be late. Blademaster Torvan does not tolerate lateness." "Blademaster?" Kira asked. Vorath's eyes narrowed. "You are assigned to Blade Cohort 12. You will learn the sacred art of close combat. The knife, the sword, the spear. Weapons that have decided the fate of empires." He paused and looked at her hands. They were small compared to his, small and soft. "I hope you are ready, human. The training is difficult. Many cadets do not survive the first month." He left without saying goodbye. Kira stood alone in her room looking at the uniform. It was black with silver markings. The symbol of the Valorian Institute was printed on the chest, a blade surrounded by stars. She changed into the uniform and looked at herself in the mirror. The fabric felt strange against her skin. Alien. She did not look like a warrior. She looked like a child playing dress-up. But Kira had not come this far to fail. She had trained for 5 years on Earth, studying every combat style the military could teach her. She had beaten opponents twice her size. She had earned her place here, even if no one believed it yet. Tomorrow she would show them what a human could do. The next morning, Kira found the training hall after getting lost twice. The corridors of the Institute were designed for beings with better memories than hers. Everything looked the same. Metal walls, metal floors, metal doors. But she arrived before 6th bell, and that was what mattered. The training hall was beautiful. Ancient stone columns held up a ceiling that glowed with soft light. Holographic screens flickered on the walls, showing combat scenarios and weapon forms. A circle was drawn in the center of the floor, the dueling ring. Other cadets were already there. 12 in total, not counting her. 4 Dralith, 5 Vethkai, 3 Silurians. They stood in small groups, talking quietly. When Kira entered, the talking stopped. She felt their eyes on her, measuring her, judging her. A Silurian cadet walked toward her. He was thin and tall, his pale skin almost glowing in the light. His black eyes showed no emotion. "You are the human," he said. His voice was soft and cold. "Kira Vasquez," she replied. "I am Thesic. I have studied your species." He tilted his head to one side. "You are fragile. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot hear high frequencies. You are slow, weak, and short-lived." He paused. "Why are you here?" Kira met his gaze without blinking. "To learn." Thesic made a sound that might have been amusement. "There is nothing you can learn here that will make you our equal. The gap between our species is too wide." Before Kira could respond, a door opened at the far end of the hall. A Dralith entered. He was old, his gray skin marked with hundreds of scars. His forearms moved with practiced grace. His eyes were sharp and cold. The cadets snapped to attention. "I am Blade Master Torvan," the Dralith said. His voice filled the room like thunder. "For the next year, I will teach you the art of the blade. I will break you down and build you back up. Some of you will fail. Some of you will quit. But those who survive will become the finest warriors in the galaxy." His eyes moved across the room and stopped on Kira. She saw the judgment in them, the doubt. "Today," Torvan continued, "we begin with the foundation of all blade combat, the sacred grip, the Kethvor." He drew a knife from his belt. The blade caught the light. Kira watched carefully. Something about his grip looked wrong. She could not explain it yet, but deep in her gut, she felt it. Something was very wrong. Blade Master Torvan held the knife in front of him like a holy object. The blade was simple, a straight edge, a sharp point, a handle wrapped in dark leather. It looked like 1,000 knives Kira had seen before, but the way he held it made her stomach turn. "The Kethvor grip," Torvan said, "was created by the ascended races over 4,000 years ago. They studied the science of combat. They tested every angle, every position, every movement. They found the perfect way to hold a blade, and they gave that knowledge to us." He demonstrated the grip slowly. His main right hand wrapped around the handle with the blade pointing down, but the sharp edge faced inward, toward his own wrist. The point angled away from his body at an awkward angle. Kira frowned. "On Earth, that grip would get you killed. The edge should face outward, away from your own body. That way, when you slashed, the blade would cut. When you blocked, the edge would bite into your enemy's weapon. Everything about combat told you to keep the sharp part pointed at the other person, not at yourself." But Torvan held the knife backwards. And from the respectful silence in the room, Kira understood that everyone thought this was correct. "Come," Torvan ordered. "Take your training blades and show me the Kethvor." The cadets moved to a rack on the wall and selected their weapons. The training blades were dull, designed to bruise but not cut. Kira took one and felt its weight. It was balanced well. A good knife. She watched as the other cadets took their positions. The Dralith held their blades with confidence, their forearms giving them many options. The Vethkai gripped theirs with their upper limbs, their mandibles clicking softly. The Silurians moved with careful precision, every finger placed exactly where it should be. All of them held the blade backwards. Kira looked down at her own knife. Her hands wanted to hold it the way she had been taught on Earth. Edge out, point forward, ready to strike or defend. But everyone else was doing it differently. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe there was something she did not understand. She tried to copy the Kethvor grip. It felt wrong. Her wrist bent at a bad angle. Her arm could not move freely. If she tried to slash from this position, she would cut herself before she cut anyone else. Torvan walked among the cadets, checking their form. He stopped beside a young Vethkai who was struggling with the grip. The insectoid's limbs were shaking with effort. "Your angle is wrong," Torvan said. He reached out and adjusted the cadet's hand, pushing the blade even more inward. The edge must face the inner wrist. This protects it from being knocked away. Kira almost spoke. She bit her tongue instead. That made no sense. If someone knocked your blade, you wanted the edge to cut them, not to be protected. But she was new here. She was the outsider. Maybe she should wait and learn before she opened her mouth. Torvan continued his inspection. He nodded at the Dralith, praised a Silurian's perfect form, and finally stopped in front of Kira. He looked at her grip. His four eyes narrowed. "Human," he said, "your blade is turned wrong." Kira looked down. Without thinking, she had shifted her grip. The edge now faced outward, the way it should, the way her body knew was right. "I apologize, Blade Master," she said. "I will correct it." She tried to turn the blade back to the Kethfor position, but her hands refused. Every instinct she had screamed that this was a mistake. She had trained with knives since she was 15 years old. She had fought in competitions, in sparring matches, in real combat simulations. Her body knew how to hold a weapon, and this was not it. Torvan watched her struggle. His expression showed no patience. "The Kethvor grip is the foundation of all blade combat," he said. "It has been used by every warrior species in the Concord for 4,000 years. Are you telling me that a human, from a species that discovered space travel less than 2 decades ago, knows better than the Ascended?" The room was silent. Every cadet watched her. Tasik, the Silurian, had a small smile on his thin lips. He was enjoying this. Kira's heart pounded. She could apologize. She could force herself to learn the wrong way. She could survive the year by keeping her head down and her mouth shut, but she could not do it. "Respectfully, Blade Master," she said, "the blade is backwards." The words hung in the air like smoke. Torvain did not move. His forearms remained at his sides, but Kira saw the muscles tense beneath his gray skin. When he spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. "Explain." Kira swallowed hard. "The edge should face outward, away from your own body. When you slash, you want the sharp part to hit your enemy, not the flat. When you block, you want the edge to cut into their weapon or their arm. With the edge facing inward, you lose cutting power. You risk cutting yourself, and you cannot use the blade's natural shape for defense." She demonstrated, turning her knife to the correct position. "This is how humans hold a knife. This is how we have held knives for 12,000 years. A Dralith cadet laughed. His name was Orek, and he was the largest being in the room. His gray skin was covered in scars, and his forearms were thick with muscle. 12,000 years, he repeated. "Humans have been stabbing each other for 12,000 years, and they think that makes them experts." He looked at Torvan. "May I demonstrate why the Kethivore is superior, Blade Master?" Torvan was still staring at Kira. His expression had not changed, but something flickered in his eyes. Doubt? Anger? She could not tell. "Yes," he said finally. "Show her." Oryx stepped into the dueling ring. He held his training blade in the Kethvor grip, the edge facing inward. He was twice Kira's size. His reach was longer. His strength was greater. By every measure, he should destroy her. "Come, little human," he said. "Show me your primitive technique." Kira stepped into the ring. She held her blade edge out, point forward. Her stance was low and balanced. She had faced bigger opponents before. Size was not everything. The room watched in silence. Torvan raised his hand. "Begin." Orek moved first. He was fast for his size, his forearms working together as he rushed toward Kira. His blade came down in a powerful overhead strike, aimed at her shoulder. Kira stepped to the side. The blade passed through empty air. She did not try to block. Blocking a Dralith's strength with her smaller body would be stupid. Instead, she moved around it. Her knife flashed out. The edge caught Oryx's lower right arm, leaving a red mark on his gray skin. First blood. If the blades were real, she would have cut him deep. The watching cadets made sounds of surprise. Oryx growled and turned, his four eyes burning with anger. He had not expected her to be so quick. "Lucky, he said. "That will not happen again." He attacked once more, this time using two arms at once. His blades came from different angles, trying to trap her between them. It was a good strategy. It used his natural advantage. But Kira had trained against multiple opponents before. She dropped low, letting both blades pass over her head. Her knife struck upward, hitting Oryx in the stomach. The blunt training blade left a dark bruise on his skin. Second strike. In a real fight, that would have opened his belly. Aurochs stumbled backward. His breathing was heavy now. Confusion replaced the anger in his eyes. He was one of the best fighters in the cohort. He had won dozens of duels against other cadets. But this small human was making him look like a beginner. "Your grip is wrong," Kira said. She kept her voice calm, not mocking. "The edge faces inward. When you try to slash, you have to twist your wrist first. That takes time. It warns me what you are about to do." She showed him her own grip. "Edge outward. When I move, the blade moves with me. No delay, no warning." Auroch roared and charged. All four arms swung at once, a storm of blunt metal. He was done being careful. He wanted to crush her with pure force. Kira did not retreat. She stepped into his attack, past the range of his swinging arms. Her shoulder hit his chest. Her knife pressed against his throat. "Dead," she said quietly. The room was completely silent. Auroch looked down at the blade touching his neck. His forearms hung frozen in mid-swing. If this had been real combat, his head would be rolling on the floor. He stepped back slowly. His eyes met hers, and she saw something new in them. Not anger anymore. Not pride. Respect. "You are fast," he admitted. "I am trained," Kira replied, "and my blade faces the right direction." She turned to face Blade Master Torvan. The old Dralith had not moved during the fight. He stood like a statue, his forearms crossed, his scarred face unreadable. But his eyes were different now. The dismissal was gone. In its place was something she had not expected. Fear. "How long have your people been fighting with blades?" he asked. Kira thought about the question. Humans had been using knives since before they were truly human. Stone blades, then copper, then bronze, then iron, then steel. 12,000 years of recorded history and countless millennia before that. "Longer than we have been writing," she said. "We have been killing each other with blades since the beginning. Every generation learned from the last. Every war taught us something new. What did not work, we threw away. What got people killed, we stopped teaching." She looked at the knife in her hand. Such a simple tool, such a deadly one. "On Earth, we tested our techniques with blood," she continued. "If a grip was wrong, warriors died. If a stance was weak, armies lost. We did not have the luxury of keeping traditions that did not work. We had to adapt or die." Torvan was quiet for a long moment. The other cadets watched, waiting. Thesik's smile was gone now. Even he seemed uncertain. "The HFY grip was created by the Ascended," Torvan said slowly. "They were the first spacefaring races. They built the Concorde. They gave us civilization." "And they may have made a mistake," Kira said. "Or maybe the grip was copied wrong over the years. Or maybe it worked for their bodies, but not for others. I do not know, but I know what I see. The edge faces the wrong way. The technique is flawed." Torvan's jaw tightened. She was asking him to question 4,000 years of tradition. She was asking him to doubt the foundation of everything he taught. "Show me again," he said. Kira demonstrated the correct grip. Edge out, point forward. She moved through the basic strikes, each one flowing naturally into the next. Cut, slash, stab. Defend, deflect, counter. Her body moved like water, the blade an extension of her arm. Then she switched to the HFY grip. The same movements became awkward. Her wrist bent at painful angles. Her strikes lost power. Her defense became slow. "You see," she said, "the body fights against this position. Every instinct tells you this is wrong, but you teach it anyway, because the old books say so." Torvan watched her demonstration without speaking. His four hands had curled into fists. Kira could see the war happening inside him. Pride against truth. Tradition against evidence. Finally, he turned to the class. "Training is over for today," he announced. "Return to your quarters. Tomorrow we will continue with the standard curriculum." The cadets filed out slowly, whispering to each other. Auroch paused beside Kira on his way out. "You fight well, human," he said. "I would like to spar with you again. Perhaps you can teach me this technique." Kira nodded. "Perhaps I can." When the room was empty, only Kira and Torvan remained. The old blade master stood in the center of the dueling ring, staring at the knife in his hand. He held it in the HFY grip, the grip he had taught for 60 years. "If you are right," he said quietly, "then I have taught thousands of warriors the wrong way to fight. I have sent them into battle with a weakness built into their hands." Kira did not know what to say. She had not meant to shake his faith. She had only meant to tell the truth. "If I am right," she said gently, "then you can fix it. You can teach them the correct way. It is not too late." Torvan looked at her. For the first time, he did not look at her like she was an insect. He looked at her like she was an equal. "Come to my study after evening meal," he said. "I want to see the records. I want to understand how this happened." He turned and walked away, his forearms hanging loose at his sides. He looked older than before, smaller. Kira watched him go. She had won the fight against Auric, but she was not sure if she had won anything else. Some victories felt like defeats. Torvan's study was filled with old things. Weapons hung on every wall, swords, spears, axes, knives. Some were ancient, their metal dark with age. Others were trophies from battles long forgotten. Books lined the shelves, their covers made of materials Kira did not recognize. A large desk sat in the center, covered with papers and holographic displays. The Blade Master sat behind the desk when Kira entered. He looked tired. His gray skin had lost some of its color, and his 4 eyes were heavy. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair across from him. Kira sat. She waited. Torvan activated one of the holographic displays. Ancient text appeared in the air, written in a language Kira could not read. Symbols and diagrams floated beside the words, showing blade positions and grip techniques. "These are the original HFY War manuscripts," Torvan explained. "They were written by the Ascended over 4,000 years ago. They are the foundation of all blade combat taught in the Conquered." He zoomed in on one diagram. It showed a hand holding a knife. The grip was clear. The edge faced outward. Kira leaned forward. "That is not what you taught today?" "No," Torvan agreed. His voice was heavy with shame. "It is not." He pulled up another document. This one was newer, perhaps 2,000 years old. The same diagram appeared, but something had changed. The blade was turned. The edge now faced inward. "This is the first training manual we can find that shows the inverted grip," Torvan said. "It was written during the Third Reformation, when the old texts were copied and translated for wider distribution." "A copying error?" Kira asked. "Perhaps, or a translation mistake, or simple confusion." Torvan shook his head. "The original language of the Ascended is difficult. Many words have double meanings. The word for inward and outward differs by only one symbol. Someone made an error, and no one caught it." He turned off the display and sat back in his chair. His 4 arms folded across his chest, but the gesture looked defensive now rather than proud. "For 2,000 years," he said slowly, "we have taught warriors the wrong technique. Every soldier, every guard, every fighter in the Galactic Concord has learned a flawed grip, and no one questioned it because the Ascended were considered perfect. Their knowledge was sacred. To doubt it was heresy." Kira understood. On Earth, traditions had been questioned constantly. Every generation tested the old ways against new ideas. What worked survived. What failed was abandoned. But in the Concord, the long peace had preserved everything. Good ideas and bad ideas together, frozen in time, never tested. "How did no one notice?" and she asked. Torvan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because we stopped fighting. The Concord has been at peace for over 1,500 years. Oh, there are small conflicts at the borders, skirmishes with pirates and rebels, but no true wars, no battles where thousands of warriors met with blades in hand." He stood and walked to the wall of weapons. His hand touched an ancient sword, its blade nicked and scarred from use. "My grandfather carried this weapon in the border wars," he said. "He told me stories of combat, of blood, of survival. But I have never fought a real battle. None of my students have. We train and spar and demonstrate, but we never truly test our skills." "Until now," Kira said. Torvan turned to face her. "Until now. A human walks into my training hall and defeats my best student with a grip that I would have called primitive yesterday." He paused. "How did your people avoid this trap? How did you keep your knowledge pure when you had no wars to test it?" Kira thought about the question. Earth's history was written in blood. Wars, conflicts, violence stretching back to the first tribes. It was nothing to be proud of. Millions had died, civilizations had fallen, but there was one benefit to all that destruction. We never stopped fighting, she admitted. Not for long. Every generation had its wars. Every century had its conflicts. We tested our techniques against each other constantly. The warriors who used bad techniques died. The ones who survived passed on what worked. She looked at her hands. Human hands. Small and soft by Drelith standards. But they knew how to kill. Our violence kept us honest, she continued. We could not afford to believe in traditions that did not work. The battlefield showed us the truth, whether we wanted to see it or not. Torvan was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. You said the blade grip was wrong. What else have we gotten wrong? It was a dangerous question. Kira knew she should be careful. She was still an outsider here, a representative of a species that most of the galaxy considered primitive. But Torvan was asking honestly. He wanted to know. How much time do you have? She asked. Torvan sat back down. Tell me everything. Kira talked for 3 hours. She explained the problems with the standard combat stance, which left the left side exposed. She pointed out errors in the footwork patterns, which wasted energy and slowed response time. She questioned the weapon designs, some of which had decorative features that weakened the blade. Torvan listened without interrupting. Sometimes he nodded. Sometimes he frowned. Often he pulled up old documents and compared them to what Kira was saying. More than once his face went pale as he discovered another error that had been copied and preserved for centuries. By the end, the holographic displays were filled with annotations and corrections. The sacred doctrines of the Ascended looked like a student's paper covered in red marks. This is a disaster, Torvan said finally. Everything we teach, everything we believe, it is all corrupted. Not all of it, Kira said. The basics are sound. The principles are good. But the details have drifted over time. Small errors that added up to big problems. Torvan looked at her with something like wonder. How can you see all of this so clearly? You have been here for 1 day. Kira smiled sadly. Because I come from a world where mistakes get you killed. I was trained to question everything, to test everything, to trust nothing until I have proven it with my own hands. She stood up and walked to the door. On Earth we have a saying, trust but verify. Maybe the Concord trusted the Ascended too much. Maybe it is time to verify. She left Torvan alone in his study, surrounded by the broken pieces of his faith. Behind her, she heard him begin to work again, pulling up more documents, searching for more errors. The night was just beginning. 6 months had passed since Kira's first day at the Valorian Institute. The training halls looked the same as before, the same stone columns, the same holographic displays, the same dueling ring in the center. But everything had changed. Today, the grand amphitheater was full. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central stage, and every seat was occupied. High commanders from 12 species sat in the front rows. Military advisors, academy directors, and government officials filled the rest. News drones floated near the ceiling, broadcasting the event across the galaxy. Kira stood at the edge of the stage, wearing her formal uniform. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat fast. In a few minutes, she would address the most powerful military leaders in the Concord. Beside her, Blade Master Torvan reviewed his notes one last time. He looked different now. The pride was still there, but it was tempered with something new. Humility. Wisdom. He had spent 6 months tearing apart his own teachings, searching for errors, testing every technique against evidence and logic. The process had broken him and rebuilt him. Are you ready, or? He asked. No, Kira admitted, but I will do it anyway. Torvan smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile. That is the human way, yes? Act first, worry later. Something like that. A signal chimed. It was time. Torvan walked to the center of the stage. The crowd fell silent. He was a legend in the Concord, a blade master who had trained thousands of warriors. When he spoke, people listened. Honored commanders, he began, I stand before you today to confess a failure. Not my failure alone, but the failure of every teacher, every instructor, every master who came before me. He activated a holographic display. The HFY grip appeared in the air, the edge facing inward. For 2,000 years, we have taught this technique as sacred truth. We believed the Ascended were perfect. We never questioned their wisdom. He paused. We were wrong. The display changed, showing the original manuscripts beside the corrupted copies. The error was clear now, highlighted in red. The HFY grip was inverted by a copying mistake during the Third Reformation, and for 20 centuries, we have taught our warriors to hold their blades backwards. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some commanders looked shocked, others looked angry. A Vethkai general rose from his seat. "This is impossible," he declared. "The sacred doctrines have guided our forces for millennia. You cannot dismiss them based on the claims of one human." Torvan nodded calmly. "I understand your doubt. I shared it. But the evidence is clear." He gestured and more displays appeared. Documents, analyses, test results, 6 months of research compressed into images and data. "We have identified over 300 errors in the standard combat curriculum," Torvan continued. "Mistakes in grip, in stance, in footwork, in weapon design. Each one small by itself. Together they create systemic weaknesses in our warriors." The Vethkai general sat down slowly. His mandibles clicked in what might have been disbelief. "How did this happen?" asked a Silurian elder. Her voice was thin and ancient. "We stopped testing," Torvan said simply. "The long peace preserved our traditions, but it also froze our mistakes. We trusted the old ways without ever proving they still worked." He turned and extended his hand toward Kira. "Sergeant Vasquez saw what we could not see. She comes from a world where combat doctrine is tested with blood, where traditions that fail are abandoned, where every generation questions the last." Kira walked to the center of the stage. She felt the weight of thousands of eyes upon her. Alien eyes, suspicious eyes, but also curious eyes. "Humanity is a young species," she said. "We have no ancient wisdom, no sacred texts. We only have our experience." She lifted her training blade, holding it edge out. "This grip has kept my people alive for 12,000 years, not because it is sacred, but because it works. Every generation tested it. Every war proved it. What failed, we threw away." A Dralith commander spoke up. He was old, his gray skin marked with the scars of many battles. "You suggest we abandon 4,000 years of tradition because a human child knows better?" Before Kira could answer, another voice spoke from the crowd. "I suggest we listen." Oryx stood up. The young Dralith warrior looked different now. He had been training with Kira for 6 months, learning the new techniques, testing them against the old. His body bore the marks of their practice matches. "I fought this human on her first day," Oryx said. "She defeated me in moments, not because she was stronger or faster, but because her technique was superior." He touched a scar on his arm, a souvenir from a particularly intense training session. "I have trained with her every day since. The new methods work. I have felt the difference." Other voices joined his. Young officers who had seen Kira fight. Cadets who had learned the corrected techniques. One by one they stood and spoke in her defense. It was not a flood, but it was enough. The Silurian elder raised her thin hand for silence. "Blademaster Torvan," she said, "what do you propose?" "A new office," Torvan replied. "The Office of Doctrinal Review. Its purpose will be to examine our military traditions, test them against evidence, and correct what needs correction, not to destroy the old ways, but to purify them." "And who will lead this office?" Torvan paused. This was the moment he had been building toward. "I recommend Sergeant Kira Vasquez." The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger. Others applauded. The Vethkai general was on his feet again, his mandibles clicking furiously. But the Silurian elder simply watched with her ancient black eyes. When the noise finally died down, she spoke again. "Sergeant Vasquez, you are young, you are human, you have no rank, no authority, no history. Why should we trust you to reshape our military doctrine?" Kira met her gaze without flinching. "Because I have no loyalty to your traditions," she said. "I will not protect errors because they are old. I will not keep mistakes because they are sacred. I will test everything, question everything, and accept only what works." The elder considered her words. "And what is humanity's secret?" she asked. "How did your species avoid the calcification that has affected us?" Kira thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about Earth's bloody history, the endless wars, the countless dead. It was nothing to be proud of, but it had taught them something important. "We never stopped fighting long enough to forget what works," she said finally. "Our violence kept us sharp. Our conflicts kept us honest. We paid for our knowledge in blood, and we never let ourselves forget the price." The amphitheater was silent. Then the Silurian elder nodded slowly. "The Office of Doctrinal Review is approved," she announced. "Sergeant Vasquez will lead it, with Blademaster Torvan as senior advisor." The vote was close, but it passed. 2 hours later, Kira stood in a new training hall. A class of fresh cadets waited before her. Drelith, Vethkai, Silurian, and others. They looked at her with curiosity and doubt, just like the cadets had looked at her 6 months ago. She held up her training blade. "Edge out, point forward." "This is a knife," she said. "Let me show you how to use it."